trust you've had a happy and restful weekend. This is Newsroom on SABC News. Hello and welcome. I'm Eben Jansen. The show, of course, broadcast live between 9 and 10 a.m. from Johannesburg in South Africa, Monday to Friday. We also have rebroadcasts at 2 in the afternoon and 5 a.m. every morning. Today, we look at the relationship between human beings and wildlife in South Africa's nature reserves. We have a look at the latest around kidnapped teacher Pierre Korkie and a look at the launch of a special grant facility in the Free State province a little bit later. But first, let's take a look at the news headlines. KwaZulu-Natal Community Safety MEC Willies Mkunu has condemned the killing of 6 people in Sankonje near Hammersdale, west of Durban. 2 gunmen opened fire during a house party, killing 6 men suspected of criminal activities. The remains of MK soldiers who died in exile must be brought back home. That's the call from former Mkhonto Wisizwe combatant Robert McBride. He was among the recipients of the Amadela Kufa Awards in Durban, aimed at honoring former MK fighters. And CAF Coach of the Year, Stephen Keshi, said he would dash South African dreams, and in front of 30,000 fans and dignitaries, his men took the lead in the 22nd minute through Ijike Uzonyi. Munib Joseph spilled the ball in an attempt to win back possession, and it was too little too late for Bafana as they went down. Now, the Kruger National Park has made headlines again this weekend. It's not just the rhino poaching figures which interest South Africans, but also the arrogance and ill discipline of our fellow citizens showed in the park during the festive season and recently. The most recent incident, which was published on YouTube this weekend, 2 children hanging out of a car window a mere 3 meters away from 2 lions lying in the road. Last week, the rangers in the park had to euthanize an elephant bull after it attacked 2 tourists in a car who clearly wanted to get closer to the animal and started to aggravate it. Now, today in studio to talk about the relationship between humans and animals in the park is Ike Patla from Sandparks. Good morning, Ike, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning to you, Eben, and thank you for the invitation.
Ike, I think we have the YouTube clip there. I don't know if you've seen it yet. It's very fresh off the press. If we can just roll that clip, there we have children hanging out of the park with lions mere meters away. What is your reaction to that kind of thing?
Obviously, we don't condone such, and there are clear guidelines when people check into any of our parks that they shouldn't be doing this kind of behavior. It's unfortunate also that, this kind of videos come to our attention amidst a lot of negativity against the park officials who take appropriate action to correct what human beings have actually turned around. The relationship between human beings and animals is always going to be confrontational. Hence, we request all our guests all the time not to behave like idiots and go into the space of those animals, because we are invading their spaces.
How do you police people in the park, and what do you do to people who break the law?
We rely on members of the public who are there. You're not going to get, you're going to get 1 million people coming in through the year, but you're only going to get a fraction of those actually committing those kinds of acts. And we rely on the 99% that we have to inform our officials that this car, we've been following it, we think the people are not behaving appropriately. And sometimes we issue a fine. To the extreme, we ban people from coming to our parks.
Now, in this incident, Ike, fortunately, nobody was hurt. But just tell us, what is the process if the lion attacked those children?
I wouldn't know how to explain that, but the parents are supposed to supervise their children. If it happens that the child falls out, that the lion mauls them, unfortunately, we'll have to put the animal down. It has already tasted the flesh of a human being. The likelihood is that it will do that again, because it sees you as an easy prey, as compared to the other animals that put up a fight before they are killed to be eaten.
Now, Juxtapose that to last week. I think we can roll that video as well. Last week we had the story of the elephant bull that had to be euthanized, because there we have those pictures, people driving right up to it and wanting to get close to it to really, I don't know what they want to do or what they were thinking at that point. But in the case of an elephant bull who attacked and overturned the car, there as we see this amateur footage busy rolling, just tell us, in the case of a bull, surely the bull didn't develop a taste for human flesh. He just attacked a car. But it was also then decided to euthanize it.
Several factors, Eben. Firstly, it has given the occupants of that car several opportunities to get away. It was in must. When it is in must, it does get a little aggressive, more than normal. And then we have an instance where it has attacked a car. To an animal, that might be a game. You know that, okay, if I charge these cars, the small little things, roll them over, it's likely to do that again. And that is why we had to do that. And it was a period in the park where we have massive number of people that are coming. And in order to protect other people from this kind of behavior by another one, we really had to take the animal down. The other thing that has been mentioned by our rangers who did a post-mortem after shooting down the animal is that there are indications that it had been involved in a territorial battle with another bull. So it had some injuries, and that also aggravates the animal.
Now, in this incident, we just saw the video there. It's actually quite shocking that people can do that and really drive up to an animal to get a closer look. It must be borderline stupid, really. But when an animal is taunted like that, clearly it's not the right thing to do. But what would be your advice to people visiting the park, and then if they see people engage in that sort of behavior?
Stick to the rules of the park. When you check in, we have a pamphlet that we issue out, which is part of your permit. And there's a section that deals specifically with safe viewing of elephants. And I think in this instance, it was ignored by the people in that car. Clearly, they got too much closer to the animal. They had several opportunities, if you look at it, to get away from the animal, but still pursued it. So it's, as you said, stupidity, but it's not all of the people that are going to behave like that.
How many incidents annually do you have of this kind of behavior, or is it something that's recently on the increase?
We do have, but they are in the minority. I mean, the past year, including that particular incident, there were just 3. There was an instance where an animal did roll a vehicle in the same instance. Fortunately, the occupants didn't get injured. And then there was another one where an elephant also was involved. Yeah. But we didn't put those animals down because, you know, they mingled with a herd. And there's specific advice that if you approach a herd of breeding elephants, you have to behave this way. If you approach a bull, you have to behave this way. And unfortunately, with this one, we have to put it down.
Some people just don't adhere to it. No. Finally, before I let you go, I just want to get a heads up on rhino poaching figures and how that is going. Have we made it as bad a start to the year as is being reported, or are there good news stories?
It is a bad start in terms of numbers of animals, carcasses that we've picked up. But also we see our rangers making a concerted effort to make sure that we don't lose this natural heritage. 46 animals that have been picked up now, carcasses that have been picked up, but we've also managed to arrest close to 13 people. Unfortunately, 11 of them died in the contacts. But looking at the figures, we are encouraged that you know, the incidents of poaching, we've seen them come down. In 2012, it was at 76.4. And in 2013, they came down to 42.6 in terms of percentages. So it means some of the measures that we are putting in are beginning to yield results. But our biggest problem, even, and I've said this before on this program, is Mozambique. 80% of poachers come from Mozambique. 80% of the guns that we've confiscated up to now, they are from Mozambique. And this, it's not a conservation matter. Yeah. We are a conservation body. It is a criminal matter, and it needs to be addressed as such. The sooner we get to the heads of the syndicates that are perpetrating this, the better it will be for all of us.
Like, we've run out of time, unfortunately. It's something we could continue talking for another half an hour, I'm sure. But thank you for joining us today. That's the spokesperson for Sandparks, Ike Partler, joining us in studio today. Our top story, KwaZulu-Natal Community Safety MEC Willie Mkunu has condemned the killing of 6 people in Sankoche near Hammersdale, west of Durban. 2 gunmen opened fire during a house party, killing 6 men suspected of criminal activities. Police believe this was a revenge attack.
This is the place where the cold-blooded murders took place. Police say 2 men entered this house and opened fire without uttering a word. 5 men were killed, 3 wounded. The 6 died in hospital. The men were facing serious charges. 2 of them were due to appear in court soon.
The 5 who were killed are also alleged to be murderers themselves, who are out on bail and were wanted on other criminal activities. Very disconcerting that there are so many criminals of that nature roaming our communities.
The deceased are in their 20s. All 6 men had apparently fled the area as they were wanted by the police. They only came to attend the party. Police are urging people not to take the law into their own hands.
We have then sanctioned a team that is a multidisciplinary team that is actually consisting of the Hawks intelligence as well as the detectives to investigate this matter.
A suspect has been taken in for questioning. Police are still searching for another suspect. Msawake Maisela, SABC News, Durban.
Deputy Minister of International Relations Ibrahim will continue with talks with the Yemeni government today in a bid to secure the release of South African teacher Pierre Korkie. Korkie and his wife Yolandi were captured by Al-Qaeda militants in May last year. Last week his wife was released and told to come up with 30 million rand ransom. Over the weekend, Al-Qaeda extended the ransom deadline for the money to be paid in 3 weeks' time. Now, one man who has a bit more insight to what the Korkie family is going through is lawyer Michael Bagram. Bagram was the lawyer involved in the case of South African Dr. Cyril Carabas, who was detained in the United Arab Emirates for 9 months on charges of manslaughter and fraud. He joins us now in our Cape Town studio. Good morning, Michael. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, thank you. This is a serious business, and our heart all goes out for the Korkie family and their relatives. I think we've still got a long road to travel. This is not going to be cured in a few weeks. They've given us 21 days in which to come up with the money and to get
Michael,
the man
unfortunately,
back.
we've lost your picture. We've lost your picture. We're going to take a short commercial break and hopefully come back to you afterwards once we've got our links back. Just apologies for that break in our transmission. We'll be back with that story after a short break.
Showbiz News, the show that brings you all things art and entertainment from around the African continent. A new fashion line has been started by ex-Big Brother contestant Bokelo, who teamed up with her partner Elegim to launch the brand. The Queen of Swagger line was launched under the already existing Elegim Komodzi, the Taylor brand. Zimbabwean performers Umkati Theatre Works were highly well received at the Brooklyn Academy of Music 36th season of Dance Africa in New York, USA.
That's Afro Showbiz News, Saturdays 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom. We've got our link back up and we're going to cross to Michael Lawyer. Michael Bagram in Cape Town, a man who has experience with this kind of cases. Apologies for that, Michael, but let's just pick up where we left off. This is a tough one. Just give us the experience that the sort of families would be going through. You dealt with the Carabas case, of course, and just give us the sort of human cost of it.
Yeah, the trauma that the family undergoes is absolutely enormous. And, you know, as a lawyer for the Carabas family, I kept feeling helplessness. You know, one wants to do things and then see results. And unfortunately, in cases of this nature, you just don't see results. And you keep getting bad news fed back to you in snippets. And in fact, with the Korkie family now, there was a whole group of days that there was absolute silence. And we went through that with Carabas. What happened was, every time they postponed the case, we then didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't give us dates. They didn't tell us why they're postponing it. The information was enormous in the sense that we were getting feedback from all sorts of other sources other than the real source. And who suffers most is the family. I know that Dr. Carabas himself, although he didn't know what was going on, seemed reasonably comfortable and reasonably happy. I'm not sure what's going on in Mr. Pierre Korkie's mind, but I understand that the wife must be going through absolute hell and anguish. Can you imagine what the children are going through? Because there's this feeling that their father, their husband, the breadwinner, the loved one is not coming back. And he's hanging you feel as if there's a mouse being played with by a cat. In these circumstances now with Pierre Korkie, it's much worse, because this is not a government. This is a group of terrorists whose their whole need is to create news, to create some sort of trauma in the mind of everyone around them. So their problem is that they're trying to get money to create more trauma.
Yeah.
So it creates another issue altogether. Do we give the money or don't we give the money?
Yeah.
And you don't want to put a man's life at risk either. We need to thank the gift of the givers who are acting as the intermediaries in these circumstances, because they're doing a fantastic job. They're keeping their mind about them. They're level-headed. I know our government has now stepped in, but government to government, that's not going to work. You do need intermediaries like the gift of the givers. In the Carabas case, we were using all sorts of intermediaries, anyone we could get our hands on. You start getting desperate. And we went to business people, we went to physicians around the world, other governments. We used institutions like the World Medical Association. I used everyone. I was getting more and more desperate. And when you get desperate, you start screaming. You start saying, where else can I clutch at straws and what can I do? And every time it doesn't work, you want to just give up and lie down and die. It doesn't help. We've got to put strength in the hands of the Korkie family. I believe the press play an enormous role in something like that. They get a whole public sentiment going, and the public do change. And what's happened here with the Korkie case, the press, TV, radio, they're doing a fantastic job. And the world seems to be focused on Korkie, and the sentiment goes against Al-Qaeda completely. And on that basis, it's absolutely important. We've got to keep that pressure up. We've got to get the man back.
Yeah.
Apparently his health is failing, and it does fail in those circumstances. And it's difficult to get medicine to the man. We don't know. There's a complete blackout of that sort of information. The only piece of news that we did get is that he is in ill health. And they're given 21 days. Whether he's going to make it or not, and that's on everyone's lips. No one wants to actually voice the fact that they think he might die. You don't want to voice that. And the problem is you don't want to take away that little four-letter word, and it's hope. Hope is what we all stand by. I think in circumstances such as this, prayer would help. It certainly would. Hope is something that we need to feed and not feed despair.
Yeah.
And I think we as South Africa, you and I and the public, we stand behind that Korkie family. And we've got to keep saying that. We've got to keep saying that we're behind you, we're helping you, we expect good news, and we expect to bring him home. And that's what kept us alive with the Caribou story. It kept us alive for 9 months. Whilst he was in jail and there was a news blackout, we just kept shouting. And we kept saying that we're going to do everything that's possible to bring him home. And I think we in South Africa are doing a good job. South Africans are amazing people. They stand behind people who are in trouble. And I think the public need to be thanked in circumstances such as this.
Michael, just quickly, I've got a minute to tell us about what do you think of this outrageous demand, the ransom, which is 30 million, 32 million rand, and then how would you go about raising this money if you were in that position?
Well, it is outrageous. It's first of all, the demand makes it impossible, and no one's going to give it. The South African government have clearly stated that they're not going to pay terrorists, and they're going to stand back from that, and I can't blame them. The other problem is, unlike in the Caribou case, where they asked for blood money and it was only for R1 million, when I say only, I mean even that was impossible for him to pay. We had to rely on the public. The issue over here is that you're funding a terrorist organization. So they're going to take that 30 million, if anyone does give it to them, and use it to buy arms and ammunition, bombs and whatever, and to create havoc and death for others. And the Korkie family certainly don't want it on their hands, blood. So the real problem that you've got over here is it's a dilemma. You're on the horns of a dilemma. Do you save the one man's life and try and raise the 30 million rand, or do you say, no, let's try and negotiate that? And I think that's where the givers have stepped in. They're desperately trying to negotiate. They have said to them that we're not going to be able to raise the 30 million rand. They have said to them that that's ridiculous. We've got a very weak rand, and this is they're looking at it in terms of dollars. They thought the Korkies were Americans. They must understand now that the Korkies are South Africans. They weren't there to cause trouble. They were there to help the Yemenis. So I have a problem with that, an enormous problem. I'm hoping and praying that they release the man and they get bored with him, just like a cat would with a mouse, and to let him back home. They have raised R1 million. That possibly could be paid over. But it's a real problem. It's the horns of a dilemma that we're sitting on.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thanks for that contribution. That's lawyer Michael Bagram in Cape Town, who was involved in the release of Professor Cyril Caribus, giving his unique insight into developing story. Of course, Pierre Korkie has received 21 days, a stay of execution really by Al-Qaeda militants in the Yemen. Moving on, the Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs in the Free State has launched the Micro Enterprise Support Program, otherwise known as a grant facility to support micro enterprises to help them move forward, really. Now, in our Bloemfontein studio, to tell us more is the Free State MEC for Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Mosebenzi Zwane. Good morning to you, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, sir, and how are you?
Very good, thank you. Just tell us the objectives of your program.
Well, the objective of our program, sir, is to actually ensure that we support the micro enterprises in the province. We promote entrepreneurship. We fund, grow, and develop our enterprises in the province, especially looking into the young people, women, and disabled people, and also to increase access to capital for those, especially in rural areas, who could not, without the help of government, be in the mainstream of starting their own business and growing and sustaining it.
What are the main challenges that small business owners face in the Free State?
Well, the challenges range from mainly the lack of access to resources, the formalization and the sustainability of their own small enterprises due to capital, due to training and lack of skills, which is being addressed by this grant that we have for the support of the micro enterprises. And the market for their products, which we are also creating to ensure that they link to each other and they can sell amongst each other and government as large. I think in the main, those are the challenges we have encountered as we move around in the Free State, talking to our micro enterprises.
How do you qualify to receive one of these grants?
Well, first of all, you must be a citizen in the Free State, born and bred here or residing here. You must have a business, or you must belong to a cooperative. You should be doing something, an activity that is aligned with economic activity in the Free State. Then you qualify.
What are the main type of small businesses that have interacted with you so far and asked for grants?
They range from your chisanyamas in the street corners, the survivalist business, your hawkers, people who are dealing with fencing and so forth through the length and breadth of the province.
Just tell us finally, sir, this kind of program doesn't happen overnight. Just take us back to how this program started and how it was thought through.
Well, when we arrived in the department, there were many small and medium enterprises who approached the department seeking for funding, and they could not afford the loan. And so as we looked into our programs at that particular time, we then were aware that we do not have a program that would allow our micro enterprises to actually move a step further in realizing sustainability and moving forward. And then we created such a facility to ensure that we have a grant that will change the lives of the Free Staters and ensure that we also contribute positively in job creation. As you would know that most of the jobs come from these micro enterprises.
Thank you very much for joining us today. That is the MEC for Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs in the Free State Province, Mosebenzi Zwane, giving us an update there on a unique initiative to help small business in that province. Let's take a quick look at what you're saying and thinking on social media. Lots going on, of course. There's strikes threatening, If anything, the Kruger National Park should have fined them for their stupidity. Everything was caught on video, Mos, says KR. That is the first tweet. Kruger National Park continued to bear the brunt of rhino poaching, losing a total of 606 of the iconic animals to poachers. Last year, Kalfuni, it was almost 1,000. Zukulu Wamajove says Sam Parks was right to euthanize this elephant that was attacking people at the Kruger National Park. Behaving like an elephant, I say humans behaving a little bit more like animals in that case. Asina Mangera says Kruger National Park not doing well. The latest rhino poaching stats and latest events of putting down the bull elephant aren't favorable either. Ms. Uproar says on Jan 8, 2014, rangers in Kruger National Park fatally wounded 2 suspected poachers. Hunting rifle, ammo and poaching equipment were recovered. Well, those are just some of your thoughts coming in on social media. Of course, keep it coming. At SABC Newsroom is where we want to interact with us on our Twitter page, at SABC Newsroom. That's a red line. Of course, sabc.co.za/news. That's where you can get all the latest updates from all the current stories around South Africa, the African continent, and the world. After a short break, we go to Kenya, where 4 Westgate Mall suspects appear in court today, and we look forward to the start of award season in Hollywood. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
I'm falling for you. Wanda, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And then spit like. You really like sushi?
Not really, but I do eat sushi.
At some stage, actually, I was suicidal.
If I'm having a nightmare, okay. Woo, Toto, you're going to have a big bum. Have you guys ever, kicked the ball together with Daddy?
Yeah. I mean, he kicked me more than the ball.
That's Up Close, Monday to Thursday, 2:30 p.m. on SABC News.
With so many bad incidents happening around us, we continue sourcing, unpacking and televising nation-building and compassionate stories. From the nation's pride, those who go all out, top achievers, hard workers, those dedicated to making this country a better place, and unusual friendships. Catch all these and more on SABC News.
Welcome back with Newsroom on SABC News. Let's just take a quick look at the top stories. KwaZulu-Natal Community Safety MEC Willis Mkhunu has condemned the killing of 6 people in Sankoche near Hammersdale, west of Durban. 2 gunmen opened fire during a house party, killing the 6 men suspected of criminal activities. The remains of MK soldiers who died in exile must be brought home. That's a call from former Mkhonto Wisizwe combatant Robert McBride. He was among the recipients of the Amadela Kufa Awards in Durban, aimed at honouring former MK fighters. And in football, Bafana were knocked out of the Chan tournament yesterday. But let's just go to the next story in our lineup, of course. Production at the country's 3 biggest platinum producers will grind to a halt this week after a week of consultation by AMCU leadership. Workers at Impala, Lonmin and Amplats have all agreed to down tools. Key to the demands is a salary of 12,500 Rand after deductions. Thousands of mine workers gathered at Olympia Park Stadium in Rustenburg to support the call for what they call a living wage. Now, our reporter in Mahikeng, Selo Tatai, attended this meeting where workers voted to go ahead with a strike. Good morning, Selo. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Eben.
Selo, a very well-attended meeting we've heard and a unanimous vote for a strike. Just give us the details of what played out there.
Quite an interesting development at the country's platinum belt. Last week when we attended that consultation meeting, it was clear and obvious that Anglo Platinum miners affiliated to AMCU wants to be part of this industrial action. The previous week, we also had AMCU miners affiliated to AMCU at Impala, and also Lonmin also sharing the sentiments shared by their colleagues at Amplats, saying they want to be part of the industrial action. Their demands are 12,500 after deduction, and they say that is a living wage.
Now, Selo, do we see this strike escalating this week, and are we in for another protracted, long, drawn-out strike season?
Yesterday, AMCU President Joseph Matundra said today they are going to issue the 3 mining companies with a 48-hour notice, and starting from Thursday is then we are going to see the entire platinum belt or production and the entire platinum belt grounding to a halt, maintaining that they will be able to sustain the strike. But of interest is the fact that there are some patterns of instability or splits in AMCU, whereby you get a sense that some workers do not want to be part of this industrial action. They are saying that the 12,500 is not realistic, maintaining that maybe perhaps that was a strategy used by AMCU leadership to lure them into joining AMCU.
Now, the 12,500, we have a report, I have a report here that says Lonmin workers received 12,500 Rand last year. They received that demand. Is that accurate, Selo? And if so, why would they then have attended this meeting as well?
That is not accurate. I mean, Lonmin has come out clear to say that 12,500 is not realistic. In fact, it's going to paralyze the industry, resulting into job cuts and job losses. And you also get the very same sentiment from Emplets and Impala, saying that, you know, they cannot afford 12,500. In fact, it's going to paralyze the industry. They are offering 8.5%. I can confirm to you that already for the miners who affiliated to National Union of Mine Workers who have accepted 8.5% at Impala, it has skyrocketed. The cost of that particular 8.5% has skyrocketed to 800 million, according to Impala. So as far as things stand now, there is that deadlock. The two parties are polarized, and you don't have any indication that they will meet anytime soon to come up with some sort of an agreement to avert this looming industrial action.
Stella, just finally, just paint the picture. How do you see things play out this week until Thursday?
Well, Matundra yesterday came out clear, saying to workers that they should continue with their jobs as expected. Then on Thursday is done, they are going to down tools. The first shift of Thursday will obviously be affected, and we've got more than 60,000 workers who will be affected by the strike, starting from Impala, Emplets, and Lonmin. And you also get an indication the question remains whether they'll be able to sustain the strike. You'll remember that some of these workers are indebted, and those debts they incurred those debts during last year's industrial actions at Impala, Anglo-American Platinum, and also Lonmin. So you've got, and also the socio-economic conditions which many of these miners find themselves in leaves much to be desired. So it's a bit of a dilemma if you go on strike and fight for our rights, and also if we do really go on strike, this will be the consequences, because it will be no work, no pay.
Stella, before I let you go, there's always the threat of violence that seems to hang around when there's strikes on the Platinum Belt. Can we see these sorts of incidents escalate in the days and weeks to come?
There is that possibility. You can never rule out any possibility of violence flaring up at Marikana, at Lonmin, and at Impala, and also at Anglo Platinum. There is that possibility. I mean, yesterday when we attended this mass meeting in Rustenburg, there were any visibility of police. Obviously, the police are unpopular in Rustenburg. There were only traffic officers who were responsible in controlling the traffic. So it will be interesting going forward to see how will police manage the situation. But yesterday, obviously, President of AMCU, Joseph Matundra, warned his members against carrying dangerous weapons, saying that there will be people who will be planted amongst them to result into violence, as to say AMCU is an irresponsible organization and some matters relating to that. So it will be interesting to see how will police move swiftly in averting any criminal acts that are bound to happen at Rustenburg, starting from Thursday when the strike starts.
Sela Tatai, thank you for that contribution. That is Sela Tatai coming to us live from Haikeng, where once again strike action looms large over the entire Platinum Belt. Well, we're now going to look at the 86th Annual Academy Awards nominees that were last week in Hollywood, kicking off the run-up to one of the most glamorous events in the world in March. Gravity and the movie American Hustle led the way and are tied for the most nominations with 10 each, followed by 12 Years a Slave with 9 nods. But to tell us more and give us an insight to what we can be expecting is Garth Holmes from Film School AVDA in Cape Town. Good morning, Mr. Holmes. Thank you for joining us.
Morning. Thank you.
Let's start with the films that grabbed the most nominations, Gravity and Hustle. Your reaction to this?
Yeah, look, it's a very, very tough year for all nominees. And Gravity obviously captured the audience's imagination. and I very, very seldom heard a bad report on Gravity. American Hustle, I think, is not for everyone. It's not everyone's taste, but it's certainly an incredible film. And I'm not surprised that it has the nominations that it has.
Are there any other films that you felt should have had a nomination, or should have had more nominations for that matter?
Look, awards are always contentious, and there are films that deserve it, like Captain, especially with Tom Hanks. But he chose a tough year to be a contender. They're talking about 2013, 2014 Hollywood as the renaissance of Hollywood, and the rise of the independent, and the rise of character films. And obviously, character films have superb performances in them. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing these independent films, character-driven, about people, a lot of biopics, a lot of based on fact, based on real incidents. And, there's a massive response to this. I think that as South Africans, we probably feel that we were snubbed with Mandela. But I can tell you that Anand chose a bad year to put it in as a nominee. The other one, of course, is Ian Gabriel's Four Corners, which was the candidate for South Africa for the best foreign film. I think that's the toughest category of them all, where the rest of the world all compete against one another for one award. And it's a very, very tough category. And, bad luck to Ian and them, who've made a great movie.
You spoke about Mandela a little bit earlier. What did you make of Idris Elba's performance in the movie? And then maybe a sort of wider scenario, who were the actors and actresses that impressed this year?
The standout for me is Christian Bale in American Hustle. That is a truly remarkable performance, and an enigmatic character, so beautifully portrayed, with such sensitivity in a pretty grimy 70s era where you had to keep a good eye on your back. Jennifer Lawrence, wow, she's something else. Amy Adams, something else as well. But I also think that the Mandela actor had to compete against the 12 slaves for the nomination, Ejana War, who also put in an incredible performance. So as I said earlier on, the competition is pretty hectic this year, and I think everybody knows that.
A sort of wider point I wanted to ask you, what makes a good film and what makes a good actor? And then maybe tell us about some of the local talents that you've seen that we should be looking out for.
Yeah, what makes a good actor? I think if you've got a great character, you're 50% on the way. And then an actor who can really capture the spirit of that actor and the spirit of that times, and capture the audience's imagination and take the audience on an emotional journey. That, for me, is what constitutes a good actor. The second question, the second part of the question, you'll have to just ask me again. Sorry.
No, I wanted to ask you if there are local talents, which sort of leads into the next question, really, about how inclusive the Oscars are and how relevant the Oscars still are on a sort of global stage, going into the 21st century.
I think the Oscars, they're constantly looking for relevance because of the shift in audiences, with the teen generation being the biggest audience that there is. How do they make it contemporary? And that's their biggest challenge. In terms of inclusivity, Hollywood is about, the Oscars is about America. It's all about marketing Hollywood. It's all about selling movies. And yes, sure, there's a reward and recognition process involved, but it's all, in the end, it's all about marketing, distributing and selling movies. As I said earlier on as well, it's pretty tough for foreign countries. We all have to compete against one another. All the foreign countries have to compete in one category, what Hollywood's good at is co-opting stars from foreign countries. If they see someone do really well locally, they're bound to snap him up and have him working in Hollywood in 2 shakes of the signing of a contract. Gavin Hood is a good example of this, won the Best Foreign Film with Tsotsi, and you know, when we looked again, he was in Hollywood and doing exceptionally well for himself as well.
Well, long may that continue. Thank you. That's the co-founder and chairperson of AVDA in Cape Town, Mr. Garth Holmes. Thank you once again. Well, one of the big developing stories on the African continent, the trial of 4 men accused of helping in the Westgate gunmen plot the attack, will resume today in the Magistrates Court in Nairobi. Last week, the court heard from one witness who said the gunmen claimed to be from the Somali terror group Al-Shabaab. The men are not accused of carrying out the attack, but of lending support to the gunmen. The 4, Adnan Muhammad, Kadir Adan, Muhammad Ahmed Abdi, and Liban Abdullah Omar, as well as Hussein Hassan Mustafa, have all pleaded not guilty to charges of supporting a terror group. Now, SABC correspondent Valdi Carl also joins us on the line from Nairobi in Kenya. Good morning, Valdi.
Good morning, Eben.
Valdi, please just give us an update as to what transpired in court or what is expected to happen in court.
Well, Eben, the court is not sitting today. Tomorrow we will conduct a site visit and inspection in local to Westgate for the magistrate to familiarise himself with the mall. He said last week in court that he himself has never shopped there, he's never been there. So he needs to know what the witnesses are talking about. But this trial is progressing at a fairly rapid rate. We've had 6 witnesses so far. Last week, proceedings concluded with a witness from a police officer, a constable. And they're the first. He was the first one to exchange gunfire with the militant group. They threw a grenade at him. He explained how it exploded. Again, he gave a description of the gunman, a fairly detailed description. All of the witnesses' descriptions seem to match up. That these men are of Somali origin. That they spoke Somali to each other. However, none of the witnesses so far even have identified any of the 4 men sitting in the dock. Now, this could either be that the state is busy laying its case as to what happened, and then we'll start making the link between how it alleges these men supported the 4 gunmen inside the mall by giving them a place to stay and even hiring cars and cell phones for them.
Valdi, just tell us, this case is sitting in the Magistrates Court over there at the moment. Do we expect it to move up to a higher court at some point? And then how long do you expect this trial to continue then?
The Kenyan judiciary doesn't work like the South African context would. I mean, you'd think for a case as big as this, there'd be huge local interest and it would be sitting in a high court. It doesn't quite work like that. There's been very, very little local interest here. Most of the people covering it are the international media. They're interested to get answers about exactly what happened at Westgate, as the security forces and the exact details are still unclear 5 months down the line, Eben. It won't be moved to a higher court. The decision will rest with the magistrate in this decision as to whether or not the 4 accused that you mentioned earlier are guilty or not on these terrorism charges. They are the only 4 arrested so far. Again, the state making it clear that they're not the gunmen. They've always said that the 4 gunmen died inside the mall. But of course, this has huge repercussions for the rest of the security in the country. I don't know if you're aware that there was an IED that exploded at the airport on Thursday. That's caused a huge drama here for the security forces. The fact that they failed to pick it up, that they said initially it was a light bulb that exploded and it was an IED. In fact, Eben, I'm attending the Westgate Restoration Committee hearing. Now, this committee was set up in the wake of Westgate to probe what compensation businesses inside should receive from the government, if any. Businesses are busy making representations. So the repercussions of Westgate continues, but the trial itself is really a very small part of a larger puzzle, security puzzle that the Kenyan government is trying to figure out.
Well, thank you very much for that contribution this morning. That's correspondent Valdi Carl, who's in Nairobi, Kenya. Let's just take a final quick look at what you are thinking about or talking about on social media. Of course, Bafana very much. Bokenza says, again, Bafana are an absolute joke. And that's pretty much what everyone's talking about today. Bafana are critical but stable after yesterday's game. That's important. That's quite a nice one. Footy Head says, I think Mr. Eggers pushed the phrase, give others a chance too far. The number of inexperienced players in that Bafana squad, nah, hey? He says, well, everyone came here with inexperienced players. Shoes Ramana says, I feel like yesterday was a dream with both Manchester United and Bafana losing by the same score margin. And then Mondi says, the day school sports and development leagues are taken serious, we will see a difference in Bafana's fortunes. The Bommy, a task team he's calling for. Amagade says, Bafana, hook up with that grass pastor. You need deliverance. Eat grass, she says. Tuli Dlamini, your identity is known. I think we need to have a TRC for Bafana. Bafana says, casual Kumo. I don't think that will help. We need players. Simple as that. Talented players. Big match players. Well, that is where we wrap Newsroom for today. It's been a difficult Monday, but trust you've still enjoyed it. We'll bring you the same show again tomorrow. Hopefully a little bit better and a little bit tighter. Thank you for joining us today. Newsroom has been broadcast live from Johannesburg here in South Africa, of course. A rebroadcast at 2 o'clock every day. And then the following morning, once again, highlights of this very show will come to you at 5 a.m. This has been a live broadcast by SABC News. We love it in the morning.